Welcome to Chat It Up. My name is Shooter. I am the producer and host of this podcast, and I'm going to be coming to you every 2 weeks with an interesting interview or review about the place that I love most, which is also the place that I call home, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. We're going really big with this first interview. It's with Justin Bugsy Saylor, who is the unofficial ambassador of the UP. He and I have a lot to talk about, so I'm going to just jump right into this. I hope that you guys enjoy, and without further ado, it's time to chat it up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am here with the man, the myth, the legend, Justin Bugsy Saylor. Justin, or I'm going to just call you Bugsy because it's weird saying Justin. I'm assuming you're cool with that.
Everybody knows me as Bugsy.
Okay.
I bet there's people out there right now learning that my first name is Justin, and it's just, wait, I didn't know he had a first name.
I think you're right, because people all the time, because somebody will see me and they'll know that I know you, and they say, is Bugsy his real name? And I'm like, no, it's actually Justin. And so then I have to start with this question then. Where did the nickname Bugsy come from?
Thank my mother and a few friends. My mom started calling me Bugsy when I was 1 year old, and first grade, come in from recess, tell a couple friends. I actually told them not to call me Bugsy and not to tell anybody that my mom calls me that, and I had a good lesson in trust right away. So they started calling me Bugsy, and I mean, it just stuck. It didn't take long before elementary teachers, coaches, principals, and then it carried over to college, and it's for better or worse. I mean, I learned to embrace it from a very early age.
That's always amazing to me. Like, the UP has such a nickname culture, and not a lot of other places do, I've kind of found, like in my travels, like, especially downstate compared to the UP. People that I know from downstate that have come up here, they're like, man, everybody's got a nickname. Because like when you start introducing them to friends, it's like, oh yeah, that's Bugsy, this is Shooter, this is Fuzzy. Like, everybody's kind of got this unique nickname. And
let's throw back. Where did Shooter come from?
So Shooter came from my dad. It's just kind of one of those things that he always said to me growing up, kind of like saying, hey, buddy or pal. It was always like, how's it going, Shooter? Nice job, Shooter. And it just kind of stuck. So.
Yeah, it's true. I think it's part of the culture up here that everybody. And I don't think that would happen up here without the sense of community we have. Like, I think because it feels like it doesn't matter, everything we going between up in the copper country right now, even though it's 100 miles away from us in Marquette, we still feel connected.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like you can run into anybody from any town in the UP, and you kind of already feel like they're your buddy.
That's true. That's very true.
Like, you start on this plane that's just like out of the gate, you're kind of already on the same page. Like, you're from the UP, I'm from the UP. There's that link that we kind of live by.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. So you are born and raised in Baraga, home of the Vikings. Shout out to all the Vikings out there that are listening. I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit to the I want to talk about the hometown invasion tour.
Okay.
So we're going to jump back to the magical year of 2006. Barry O was in office. You were just finishing up school, right? Were you finishing school, or were you still in school?
Just finishing my last and final year at Michigan State.
Okay. So break down for the listeners what exactly the hometown invasion tour was.
Well, I had spent 5 wonderful years at MSU, and I studied advertising and sociology.
Okay.
I'd always had a website of some kind and a journal. I've always liked photography. And rather than just going into the advertising industry, I was thinking, well, how can I kind of merge all my fields and interests into one thing? So I was like, well, if I go on this 50-state road trip, I can stay with these different families and tie in the sociology degree. I can do all the marketing of it and tie in the advertising degree. I can make a website, and I can document everything through a journal and photography. So I essentially came up with this idea that checked off all of my hobbies and my new degrees. So the idea was, okay, graduate college, go on a 50-state road trip, a year long, and stay with people I never met in all 50 states.
That's incredible.
It was no big agenda. Like, it was really just to stay with strangers and to see a cross-section of America and kind of see where the road takes me.
Sure. So what would you say was probably like your biggest highlight for that whole trip? I mean, I'm sure you saw so many amazing things and had so many experiences.
Yeah.
But
well, if I'm getting really sentimental, the sentimental highlight was I'm blown away with how kind everybody is. And I would admit that I saw a rosier picture of America than what we might know. But I think what I saw was a more accurate depiction of America than what we see in the evening news on a regular basis.
Sure.
Like, everybody was so nice. People willing to take time out of their vacations, busy family schedules, show me around, really generous. Otherwise, the actual memory that was probably the best was, it's a story.
That's all right. That's what we're here for.
So I was in Montana, which was probably, I went counterclockwise around the country. So Montana was early, one of like the 5th or 6th state.
Okay.
Checking my email, and I says, oh, this is an email. I'm a producer with the Naomi Judd television show, and we'd like to have you on our show. I was like, what? So, Naomi Judd.
I'm sorry, that's just so random.
Yeah.
Like, of all things, Naomi Judd.
Yeah, so,
shout out to Naomi Judd if you're listening
thanks,
too, by
Naomi.
the way.
So this is for the Hallmark Channel, so super wholesome.
Sure.
And Naomi was doing an episode that was all about hometowns and her hometown, etc. I feel we're on a first name basis now.
Yeah.
She probably doesn't remember me. So I was like, yeah, sign me up. What do we do? So another month later, they sent a film crew to meet me in Oregon to follow me around for the day.
Okay.
We did a bunch of activities. I tried my first ever Rocky Mountain oyster.
Ooh.
Do you know what that is?
I do.
What is it?
Isn't it a bull testicle?
Yeah.
All right. So we're keeping it PG. I'm going to use the correct nomenclature. That is a bull testicle.
And it was fried, which everything fried is. It was the texture that was the bigger issue.
Sure.
Anyhow, they had a film crew, and then a month later, the plan was I would be in LA, and the plan was for them to fly me from LA to New York to be a guest in their studio.
Wow.
So then they had all this B-roll and stuff. So my mom is extremely excitable, and she was so giddy. She's like, oh, my son's going to be on TV.
And it's the Judds.
Yeah, this is a big show. Bigger than,
right?
It's not anything local.
Right.
And my mom was like, oh, can you find a way to get us to New York? Like, can we, can the producers fly us there? And I was like, I'll ask Mom. I was like, geez. So I asked, we're such a small time show, like we just don't have the budget for that.
Right.
And time goes by, I get to LA, and it's the beginning of December. They fly me to New York. I get picked up in a, nice car. They drop me off at my hotel. And I was like, this hotel seemed kind of crummy to me.
Yeah.
It's like this, I was like, man, they really are on a low budget.
Right.
So, and then I call my parents and they're not there. I was like, shoot, I want to update them on New York. I got to get up in the next morning early to get to the studio. They pick me up again. While I'm at the studio, I noticed this guy pacing back and forth out my door. And I'm like, this is weird, because I had a little dressing room, real small studio. I was like, that's weird. And then I had to use the bathroom at one point. He's like, oh, I got to check. I was like, what are you going to check on? was really bizarre. And then I'm just kind of killing time, and eventually I'm out there, we're recording, I'm interviewing with Naomi, and then we have this break, and we kind of come back from commercial break, and she starts asking questions. Are you getting homesick? How long has it been since you've seen your family? And I'm kind of like chumming it up for the camera.
Sure.
Like, at that point, it hadn't even been that long since I left. But out of nowhere come my parents and my brother not even in the studio audience, but onto the set and the stage with me. And I'm just dumbfounded.
Okay.
And it's the first time they ever had a surprise guest on the show.
That's legit.
It was. So this setup was amazing. The point from where my mom started asking me if they could get her out, she already knew.
Oh man!
They
set you. Mom set you up.
Yeah, they set me up. And when I got to my crummy little hotel room, they booked hotel rooms for my parents first. I went to my parents. They had this beautiful room overlooking Central Park.
You're like, what?
Yeah, and they had to like scrounge around to find a hotel for me last minute.
Oh man.
And like the reason they were pacing back and forth is they had to make sure that I was in my room, or if like my doors open, that that they had to, my parents had to have their doors shut.
Yeah.
And they went to all this extent. They flew us into different airports at different times on different airlines.
Man,
to make
so they
sure
really went all out to like pull this off.
Right.
That's pretty special.
So it was amazing, and it was a fun thing for my whole family. But my parents are such small town folks, from Baraga, that they would have never gone to New York City on their own, and they basically had this all expenses trip paid to New York, and they got to see it and take in the sights, and
sure.
It was a fun family thing at that point.
Very awesome.
Yeah.
So on the flip side of that, besides highlight, and I'm guessing I think this might be the low light, or at least the sketchiest moment. If memory serves me correct, didn't you almost die during this trip and staying in somebody's home?
You could say that. Yeah, it was. This was the third, fourth state of the trip. I was in Minnesota, in the suburbs of St. Paul, White Bear Lake. And it was my last night there, where I was in the basement printing directions. I could kind of sense that something wasn't right in the room. Asked the mom, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, maybe there's a gas leak. So we checked the gas. It was fine. Called 911. They said, get out of the house. And it turns out that carbon monoxide levels were through the roof. They had two teenage daughters that were already in bed. It was like after 11 or midnight at that point.
Sure.
And the fire chief guy said another hour in the house and all five of us would have been dead.
It's just unbelievable. You just never know.
And yeah, it was so eerie. Like we had to like air out the whole house. He explained everything, it was this perfect storm sort of thing.
Yeah.
But going to bed in that same house that same night was terrifying. But yeah, they gave me credit. The family did. I made the newspaper a few times that week.
You were a bona fide hero.
Yeah, and it was, and this is the thing, is as I left on this trip, and some friends were like, well, enjoy your year-long trip of being a hobo, or just, whatever. But that wasn't the case at all. It was actually like an accelerated year of like, you're moving so fast and experiencing so many things in a really short time frame. So it's like you're experiencing life and death and like everything in between.
Sure.
And it's like the last thing anybody would want to do for a vacation. Like it's like you have to be on the whole time.
Yeah.
You have to be really conscious about asking for coasters and putting your feet up, and like you can't really, you're a guest. And I changed beds every 2.8 days for a year.
Sure.
So you can never relax.
Weren't you driving a car that wasn't even yours? Didn't Jeep give you a car to use?
Yeah, so I was able to get sponsorship from Jeep. So that's a great benefit of living in Michigan and having contacts in the auto industry. I didn't have contacts. I networked and talked to my college professors and was like, how can I make this trip happen?
Yeah.
So
incredible.
It was special.
Very, very cool. So let's fast forward a little bit to talk about you, Prestige. I guess how did this come about? How did you create it? And I know a lot of stuff has kind of snowballed from that initial creation, but how did that initial
there's two steps. I mean, the idea really came through the Hometown Invasion tour.
Okay.
I had just gone to all 50 states, got home to Baraga, and on the trip I'd incidentally collected a shirt from almost all 50 states.
Incredible.
Not trying. In hindsight, I wish I did. And
I would be all about that.
Yeah.
I'm a t-shirt guy, and
Yeah.
I'm such a schlub. I totally, like, every time I go somewhere, I'm like, gotta buy a t-shirt.
And now I would be. But then I started, the further away I got from the Midwest, the less people knew about Michigan, the Great Lakes, and of course the UP. And I found this love, as much as every question I'd ask about their hometown, they'd fire back my way. And I found this love of kind of telling people about the UP, the Great Lakes. The further away you get, the less people understand about the size of Lake Superior.
Right.
So I had one person, I wish I could remember where this was, but they asked, can you see across Lake Superior? I'm like, yeah, you can see like across the bay from Baraga to Lance, but that's not really, no, you can't. But I loved it. And so I kind of got back after collecting all these shirts. And this ambassador thing, I wasn't titled that yet, but I found that and loved it. So I started creating this content and just came out with just a simple shirt with just the silhouette of the UP.
Yeah.
And wanted to create an iconic shirt for the UP, take the text off of it so people see it. They kind of, if they know what it is, they get it.
If you know, you know.
Yeah. And then if you don't, you ask a question.
Yeah.
Because I would start wearing these shirts from the trip. And I might buy, there's a shirt I had from Oklahoma, and I was wearing it in Alabama. And somebody's like, oh, it started this whole connection about Oklahoma that if I was wearing a Nike t-shirt, nobody's like, oh, I also have a Nike t-shirt.
Right.
So I loved the dialogue that it created, which was the inspiration of doing just the shirt without telling somebody what it is.
Yes.
So I think you caught me on a day where I'm pretty long-winded with answers.
No, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. That's what we're here for.
Another piece of this inspiration that I kind of go back to is that in college at MSU is maybe my second semester, and I overheard some student behind me kind of talking to his friends, and he's like, who would ever want to live in the Upper Peninsula? And I was furious. Like, it took all my willpower not to just want to like turn around.
You're like, me, sucker?
Yeah, and just sock him one. But like, that kind of lit a fire in me of like, that was kind of my first kind of glance that I don't think I would have done all these UP things if I hadn't left the UP for a while.
Absolutely.
And I was doing the same thing at MSU, all these students, friends, classmates that had never been to the UP.
Yep.
And I remember being kind of dumbfounded how little these new friends of mine who lived in this state their whole life had never been to the UP, knew so little about it.
Absolutely.
So that experience at MSU kind of lit a fire in me as well.
I can relate to that. I went to school at Central, and I made a lot of friends from downstate, and it was the same thing, just people without a clue about what's going on in the UP, and making jokes about how I talk and different things, and that type of stuff. So I definitely know where you're coming from. So you come up with this iconic shirt, and you're starting to embrace this unofficial ambassador of the UP role. And I feel like so many things have like spawned from that, like 906 Day, for example. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, I always talk in Venn diagrams with all my projects. Like, there's enough overlap to kind of like launch the next thing.
Yes.
And then, I don't even know how long ago 906 Day started now. But it originally started as a promotion of like, woke up one morning, it's September 6th. Oh, that's 906. And it just hit me. I was like, let's do $9.06 off every order that day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it started as like a promo, like, let's make money.
Yeah.
But it turned into, just kind of organically grew that people connected with it. And it became kind of its own holiday.
Yeah.
So it's fun now. Now it's like I try to get other businesses on board. Like, anybody can do their own promotion with it.
Right.
And then
it's like you snowballed that into Platter Day.
Right.
And as part of like the Stormy Kromer
Yeah.
brand ambassador-ness. So like talk a little bit about that, because Platter Day's gone basically global. I mean, right? I mean, I will never forget last year or the year before me sending you a screenshot of seeing that Target was advertising Platter Day like on their website. Right. I mean, it's trippy.
So Platter Day started 2010, 2011. I was living in Lansing, working at a design agency, and one of my coworkers and friends who's giving me some grief, he said, "Bugsy, you need to stop wearing so much plaid. It's taking away from your potential in life." And I was like, "Forget you, John. Like,
for shame."
I'm going to start wearing more plaid, and I'm going to create a holiday around it. And that's where it started. And he participates every year now. But the idea is the first Friday of October, get as many people in the world to wear plaid as possible. And I sent a blind email to Stormy Kromer that first year, and they said, "Yeah, we'd love to participate."
Amazing.
And then many other businesses, small to large, like Target participated a few years ago, and they sent an internal memo to every U.S. Target employee to wear plaid on Platter Day.
That's incredible.
And they just took over the Platter Day hashtag and that year. So it's amazing. And the idea is it's easy participation. Anybody can have fun with it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have an agenda so much, so it's not like this. It's not a political thing.
Right.
Social. It's like really easy.
It's pure.
Right.
In a world with enough bad stuff going on, it's pure. It's just something fun to do.
Yeah, and it's been awesome. So I try to gather like a big group of people for a photo each year. You know, you've participated, and
yeah.
But yeah, each year we have a photo of over 100 people in Marquette,
and you always have your beautiful Stormy Kromer cape.
Yeah,
shout out to Gina and the Stormy Kromer crew, because
Stormy Kromer's been amazing. I mean, I have so much to say about them, because it's such a great story for me about how not just a friendship begins with the family over there, but also how what a great business relationship.
Absolutely.
Because it started with this blind email. Mm-hmm. The following year, they put me on their calendar. They put Platter Day on their calendar. The following year, they made me a cape. The following year, I was a brand ambassador. And then a year or two later, you know, through Elegant Seagulls, I was working on their new website.
Yeah.
And you know, it continues to grow. So they're friends, they're business partners. They're just great, genuine people. So it's been an awesome brand to get to know personally.
Yeah, and I love it. There's already kind of a reoccurring theme here as we're going through each of these kind of different facets, is a blind email or an idea, and you just kind of reach out to a contact, or you network, or you just put something out there and you're like, hey, where can we take this?
Right.
And it just snowballs from there. And I think that's really cool.
Well, that's what I've always preached, is I think in everyday conversation, I don't think that I have more ideas or better ideas than anybody else.
Sure.
I think I'm probably just a little more likely to pursue them.
Yeah.
And I think in daily conversation, we have things like where we just say, oh, what if blank was a real thing? Or what if we started a food truck one day? Who knows? Or,
yeah.
You know, like what if there's a holiday for this? And then, but the only little difference that I ever see is like, what's that very first step? Like,
yes.
Is there someone to email? Like, is there a domain to buy? Like, you know, it's.
So, the other thing that I like is that, as driven as you are, and you reach out and you actually, like, you know, get the ball rolling on these things, you never really take yourself too seriously as you're doing these different things. I just think of some of the great pranks that you've pulled over the years.
Yeah.
Lake Superior Sharks,
yeah.
You know, Lake Wisconsin, and even Uper Singles.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about some of those things that you've kind of pulled? Because I mean, it's a cross of kind of marketing, but also it's done in a really realistic way to where I don't know. I guess maybe you can elaborate a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know where, I do an April Fool's joke every year now, and I don't know where or why it started. I think it just, the first idea was to do a blog post about a shark being photographed in Lake Superior. That was circa 2011 or 12. And then the idea is the following day we launched a fictional sports team called the Lake Superior Sharks.
Yeah.
Did a whole graphics. But the thing was to let's polish it up. Let's work with a professional logo designer, sports logo designer, and let's do the whole kind of make it as professional as possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's always been the idea is let's take a silly thing, a fun thing, and just, do it to the full extent that I'm capable of.
I guess what I enjoy most about it is people's responses, because you do such a good job of making it seem so realistic that like that photo of the shark, people are getting fired up, or the Lake Wisconsin thing, people were really fired up about that.
Yeah, so Lake Wisconsin, it was, I get my years mixed up, but the idea is that it's visitlakewisconsin.com, and
again, you buying up domains.
Yeah, too many domains, ridiculous ones. And the idea was to model the website after a change.org petition, and then that the website is actually the people of Wisconsin petitioning to rename Lake Michigan to Lake Wisconsin. Which kind of that idea kind of came to mind. I was like, how come nobody's ever mentioned, why is it Lake Michigan and not Lake Wisconsin?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, let's launch this. And my idea was to kind of get people in Wisconsin excited. And what I actually did was just turn a bunch of Michigan on fire. And I was like, I'm going to get barred from this state forever.
Yeah.
But it was a ton of fun, and the Detroit Free Press, 10 days after the fact, picked it up as a real story without any mention of April Fool's Day. And then they had to later go back and add a comment to that to say, sorry, we got fooled. But it was fun to rile people up.
Right.
And I love it. I don't know. I think there's a lot of value in putting fun ideas into the world.
Absolutely.
And we can come back and talk about Beer with Branson. But Beer with Branson was a campaign, and when that happened, it was a cool thing. It was really rewarding. And then at the end, I was reading some comments online, and there's only ever one negative comment.
Right.
But and that comment was, okay, I put in all this time to pour Richard Branson a beer. And somebody said, imagine if he had spent all that time taking on a serious issue like gun control or some type of health advocacy, and instead of pouring a celebrity a beer. And it's always sat with me, and I was, and I've always, why isn't fun an important thing?
Yeah.
To put into the world, we can't go through this world, always trying to tackle big issues without smiling.
Absolutely.
Somebody I'm not a scientist, I'm not a data expert. There are some things that I can't solve. I'm not an expert on major issues.
Yeah.
But I do have a little bit of knack of putting something fun into the world, and hopefully that'll help someone, get through a hard week or do something.
Why does everything have to be so serious?
Yeah. So I've always thought that putting a little fun into the world is a worthy cause.
Absolutely.
In itself.
And we'll come back to Beer with Branson because I for sure want to talk about that. But kind of keeping in line with that fun thing, again, one of your kind of pranks that actually turned into something positive and has been and ended up being huge was Youper Singles. I mean, you create this Youper dating site.
Yeah. And
it blows up when you initially created it. How many people signed up that first day? Do you remember?
That first day, April Fool's, I think 2014, 950 people signed up.
950 Youpers looking for love.
Right. And to this day, almost somebody signs up almost every single day not even knowing it exists. There's been no marketing of it.
No.
And, right now it's not a real site, but that's the goal one day. And, it's still like trying to I don't know, find a big investment, find the time to make it. But there's actually, I think I've proven there's actually
a niche
demand for it.
Yeah, there's a demand.
Yeah.
Youpers out there love just the same as everybody else.
Yeah.
And they just want somebody to take a sauna with.
And it's fun, it's that website I took to, you could check a bunch of your interests, but they're curated especially to Youpers.
Sure.
So there's no other dating platform that speaks our language.
Yeah.
Where it says what's your favorite color scheme, when it's Carhartt tan and Mackinac plaid and duct tape. But
What do you like on your pasty?
Right.
Ketchup or gravy?
Right. And I think what's a really great matchmaking question, which is on there, is what's your ideal weekend, Isle Royale or Mackinac Island? Because I was like, if in a couple, one person wants to go to Isle Royale for the weekend and the other wants to go to Mackinac, those are two drastically different experiences.
For sure.
I was like, that might not be a good match.
Yeah.
But they also, maybe it's good. Maybe maybe that's their weekend. They go separate ways.
Yeah, maybe that's it. You do need some alone time. But okay, so to circle back to Beer with Branson, just so everybody's clear, Bugsy, in my opinion, pulled off not the impossible, but it's kind of like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or 6 degrees of separation, where he essentially figured that he knew someone who knew someone who knew someone that could get him to sit down and have a beer with Sir Richard Branson. Now, Sir Richard Branson is a billionaire. He owns a multitude of businesses. He started Virgin Records, Virgin Airlines, you name it. If it's got the Virgin name on it, he pretty much started it. And talk a little bit about how you actually were able to make this connection to make it happen. How long did it take?
Well, it was 2010. And I think this was a shower idea, which is what happens a lot. But it started with that basic question that I think this is where ideas are born and people can choose to pursue them or not, is that this very simple question that we've all asked is if I could have a beer with anybody, who would it be?
Sure.
And that could be if I could have a dinner with anybody, you could fill that in any way you'd like. And Richard Branson came to mind right away, and then I tagged it Beer with Branson. The domain name was available, so I got that. And then, but that was the idea. I was well, how can I create a campaign around this? And the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, it was kind of this hypothesis that in the social media age that it's got to be less than 6.
Yeah.
Is it 5? Is it 4? Is it 3? And I was well, if I never ask this question, I will never know.
True.
So the premise was originally just what you said of put this into the world. There may be someone 2 degrees away that knows Richard Branson's secretary or kids or himself.
Yeah.
And if I don't ask, I'll never know. And I got a bunch of buzz from the beginning, a lot of social media stuff, and I got in touch with a guy who won a Richard Branson lookalike contest, so I could get a blurry photo with him, and nobody will know the difference.
Yeah.
There's a guy in Detroit who used to deliver pizza to Richard Branson in the 70s or something. He couldn't help me today, but it was a fun connection to make.
Yeah.
And it kind of died out. I took on a career change, and then it wasn't until 2014, 4.5 years later after starting it, that I got word that Richard Branson was speaking in Grand Rapids. So I was oh, this is the chance.
This is your
moment.
moment.
My home state. What do I have to do? And I actually came back to more traditional networking. And that was, 3 degrees away. It was me, to this guy named Rob Bliss, who used to do a ton of big stunts in Grand Rapids.
Okay.
Had met him once, and he put me in touch with a reporter in Grand Rapids. That reporter put me in touch with the executive director of the organization that brought in Richard Branson.
Sure.
So she put me in touch with his staff, and that was that.
The rest is history.
Yeah, and it was...
So what was he like?
I
mean, I know it was a very short amount of time, so it's hard to get a gauge of somebody, but...
It was short, but what you see on TV is the real deal with him. I think he's authentic, he's goofy, he's quirky. I think he's sincere. You know, he's got that British accent. But his hair is even more beautiful in person. Like, I wanted to just take my fingers and run but I was like, bodyguards are just
right.
like...
But so basically he's just this extremely charismatic...
Super charismatic. Yeah. And, you know, he's probably thrown into these situations a lot. You know, I don't know what he really knew about me. But, you know, we had a few minutes to chat. And, you know, I thought it was important that it happened in Michigan because there was a beer with Richard Branson. And, you know, Michigan is, you know, it's a great beer state now.
Absolutely.
And that it happened in Grand Rapids, which has been named Beer City, USA.
Absolutely.
At least once, if not more times. And... so it's more ceremonious, you know, a photo op and things, but you know, he's a genuine guy, and you know, it was a black tie event, and he was there in his tux, and I was there in street clothes.
Right.
I was going to the thing in street clothes, and I was like, oh. So I went and like bought a sport coat, like on my way, like, so I felt like somewhat presentable. And I had shaved my head like 2 weeks prior, not knowing I was going to meet Richard Branson.
And you're like, so it's like, God.
Yeah. So, like the first time I'd ever shaved my head. But
I forgot that you shaved your head. You went through that phase. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, I moved to Marquette and my head was shaved.
Yeah.
And that was like, so that happened literally within the first month of living back in Marquette. And all my coworkers at Elegant Seagulls at the time were like, who is this guy thinking he could come in and just pour a beer for Richard Branson? And then when it happened, I was kind of out and about just solo in Grand Rapids. And then I was like, did that really happen? And then it didn't really hit me until I saw the photo from the photographer. And then what was really cool the next day is that Richard Branson's blog put out an article about it. Which to me gave it a bunch of legitimacy that like, okay, I think he got the idea that I wasn't just someone trying to like, I wasn't there asking for $1 million. Right. I wasn't there just like trying to like chum it up with a celebrity.
Sure.
Like there was kind of an idea and a mission behind it. But it was a long shot for sure.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
But that's what it's like. It starts with such a simple question, and then if you don't try, you know, you'll never know.
Yeah. And speaking of things that you've been like trying and that it's grown and been successful, the Fresh Coast Film Festival.
Yeah.
I mean, that's grown like exponentially in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's only, you know, we're only going into our third festival.
Yeah.
And I'm only a small part of the puzzle over there. You know, I take on a lot of the marketing, the website, the materials. But, you know, Aaron Peterson, local filmmakers, the brains behind it.
And shout out to Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron's fantastic. And then Bill Thompson at Downwind, you know, takes care of a lot of our local relationships with partnerships, the outdoor tours, sponsorships. And the three of us sat down, and I was involved with the Film Fest, Capital City Film Festival in Lansing.
Okay.
And this came about, and I was like, I saw how the Capital City Festival like transformed Lansing in a way. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yes, like this is the type of thing that can transform Marquette and be a marquee event for years to come. So strictly documentary films, all about the outdoors. Last year we had 120 films, which are mostly shorts.
Yeah.
But I think at least 50% of that content last year was either based in the Midwest or the Great Lakes or had a Great Lakes filmmaker. So it's not about UP or Marquette, but all the Great Lakes region, a lot of water-based content, environmental, and just like raw adventure.
Yeah, I mean, and you're pairing up physical activities to coincide with these films.
Right.
I mean, that's genius, especially because we're in, nature's playground here in the UP. So I think it's just a brilliant idea.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, let's show an awesome mountain bike film. But like, okay, you could do this 2-3 miles from anywhere in town,
right.
So we want to get people up here and make it a destination, and it's one thing to get people up and sit in a seat to watch films, but that's not the goal. Like, watching the films is fun, but it's like that's half of it.
Absolutely.
The other half is to like get outside. If it's just jumping off black rocks, hike up Sugarloaf, like it can be you can
skipping stones.
Yeah, skipping stones.
Yeah,
you can be
absolutely.
You can be an avid outdoorsman or just someone wanting to go for a casual walk. And it's like as long as you appreciate what this place has.
Absolutely. So the stone skipping. So there was a stone skipping documentary that was out, and you kind of basically did like stone skipping lessons because you are a true professional stone skipper.
Yeah.
How did this come about? I mean, it's such a
yeah. I am a professional stone skipper. I will be skipping on Mackinac Island in the 50th annual tournament in less than 48 hours.
Yes, sir, you will. I think you're going to take home. I think you're taking home the gold.
I hope so.
This is your year.
It started from the early days of UP Prestige, before it was UP Supply Co. That I wrote a blog post, one of the first ones ever, that was 13 tips to becoming a better stone skipper. And in it, I included what was a YouTube video that was then the Guinness record, which was 51 or 52 skips held by Russ Rock Bottom Byers.
Okay.
So I embedded that video, posted it. Within so many months, Russ actually who's from Pennsylvania, found that blog post and commented on it. And this guy's like an idol of mine at the time. I was like, what? Like, no way.
Yeah.
And I was, at that time in 2008, I didn't take it seriously, but I enjoyed it. It was almost like a Sunday evening ritual, my moment of zen of the week. As long as it was nice, I'd go to Presque Isle, throw a few stones at the water, take in the night. Well, Russ followed up on that blog post, and he's the one that told me about the Mackinac Island contest. He's like, come and join us. Like, it's right down the road from you, compared to him in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So it took another couple years before I got there for the first time. So I got there, kind of got my feel for it. They've got the amateur open. It's like $5, goes towards charity, and anybody can compete. But I did it. Got a feel for it. I think I got 17 skips that first year. And then I was like, okay, like I knew what the bar was, so I was like, I went back the second year, it's like with the I'm going to win the amateurs attitude. And I did. And like with 21 skips, I won the amateurs, and they invited me to compete with the pros like that same day. And I've been invited back to compete with the pros every year since. So I think this is
started from the bottom. Now we're here.
Yeah,
like the Drake lyric.
Yeah, I think this is the 6th year on Mackinac Island. It's always July 4th, and it's a tradition now. I see the same faces every year.
Does it get any more American than that?
It's
July 4th, Mackinac Island, skipping stones.
It's so America. It's really perfect. I get jazzed about it every year. I was like, once I get on that ferry ride over to the island, I start to get really pumped up. So I bring.
Do you put like the headphones on like Michael Phelps before a race? Do you get in the zone?
So my story for you from last year is that, so they get 10 pros each year, and they actually have about probably 300 people lining this beach watching. So it's there's a guy on a microphone doing all the announcing, and the skippers take it seriously. They all want to win, but there's a lot of joking back and forth. I mean, it's still for fun.
Right.
But we want to win. So last year, we decided that my dad would actually dress up in a golf caddy outfit. So he had like the all white Masters outfit
with
the green nameplate on back that said Bugsy.
Amazing.
And he had like the hat on and everything. And so we did this whole kind of charade. Like, so it was like my first throw, and we walked down to the beach, and he's with me, and like we're looking over the water, like trying to pick like the right line of sight, and he helps me pick a rock out of the bag, and like that first throw out of 6 just straight into the water. I was like, oh no, like all that hype for nothing. And the crowd was all into it, and then it was just like the biggest disappointment. But then I showed up and did great the rest of the day. So I ended up in 3rd last year with 29 skips.
So let me ask you this, because I've always wondered this. How do they count? How do they count how many times you skip? Is it like the ripples, or like how do they have a professional judge to judge the?
There's a judging committee. They got 3 each. There's 3 or 4 judges.
Okay.
And it's all line of sight. I call it nature's first sport. Like there's nothing manufactured about it. There's no technology. There's no manufactured equipment.
They're not going to the replay?
Right. There's none of that. So it's all line of sight, and they make their best. It is a trained eye.
Sure.
And I don't count when I'm practicing, I don't try to precisely count, but it's like I kind of know what a 20 looks like.
Sure.
And I know what a 30 looks like.
Okay.
But then if one judge thinks it's a 24 and one thinks it's a 20, they'll average it out.
Okay.
But there's finagling back and forth. And 2 years ago, I threw my last stone of 6, and it was good. And it was going the distance. And there was already a 27 thrown that day. And their judges were going back and forth for a long time. And I was like, this is either going to win or it's going to be just short. And they gave me 26.
Oh.
A lot of people, so I had 2nd. And a lot of people in the crowd, they're like, some were like, what? Like that was, like that had to be the winner.
Is that the most you've ever skipped, like competition or not? Or I guess what's the...
Well, I went from 2nd place with 26 skips to 29 skips, but I dropped to 3rd place.
Okay.
So it's kind of always in that 30 ballpark for the pros.
Okay.
But Mackinac Island records are never set. It's actually pretty choppy.
Oh, I suppose.
Where we skip, it's bizarre. You actually have the wake from the ferries.
Wow.
So if you hit it just right, you're good. If you don't, you get 6 tries, everyone has to deal with the wake of the ferries.
So then, I guess, what would you say is your favorite place to skip?
It's Presque Isle.
Presque?
So this is what's unique about the professional stone skippers is I'm the only one that's a Uber.
Okay, really?
Yeah, there's a crew that's up from Metro Detroit.
All right.
A couple from Pennsylvania. One guy comes from Nevada. There's one that's won it from California. But I'm here to represent the UP. And Mackinac Island is technically in the Upper Peninsula. It's
technically,
a 906 area code.
Yeah.
And it's actually, the entire island is actually north of the Mackinac Bridge. Which is hard to, but it is. And, but the thing is, of all these pros, I'm the only one that trains on the biggest lake in the world, which is so cool to me.
Right.
And that you don't it's not a perfect grounds for skipping.
No.
You don't know if it's gonna be like 5-foot waves or glass.
Yeah.
But I love, it's been a tradition for years, is just to go out to Presque Isle and catch the sunset. And there's a beautiful rock beach there where there's plenty of stones. And it's the best. But I do have a couple other places where I have a secret place where I collect stones.
Okay.
On a more westernly part of Lake Superior.
All right.
But sometimes if it's super choppy, I'll bring it to like an inland lake or pond or
There's lots of little hidden nooks and crannies that I think are good for stone skipping.
It's tough, it's one of 2 things. There's either guaranteed places for calm waters that have no stones, or like really great stones with you don't know what the conditions are going to be like. Yeah. Also, I should correct myself about Presque Isle now, because the Little Rock Beach there, I've picked over that beach so well that there are like no more skipping stones there. So I'm sorry to the entire Marquette community that they're all in the water now. So if somebody has some scuba gear or some snorkeling gear, there's like this 50-foot radius out in the water of all the perfect stones you could ever imagine.
Oh, that's good. So let's talk a little bit now about UP Supply Company, because that's kind of like your latest endeavor, and obviously Youpers Tees is kind of like transitioned into that. So why don't you break down for the listeners what exactly UP Supply Company is?
Yeah, it started as Youpers Tees in 2008 after the Hometown Invasion tour. Started in twofold, that there's content, with the blog and trying to highlight different things about the UP, and then doing different apparel products. It was a hobby for 10 years outside of my career. So I left my career as a web designer and developer this last fall to do this full time. And as part of that transition, we rebranded everything from Youpers Tees to UP Supply Co. and opened a storefront downtown Marquette. And it's been a blast. So it's still Upper Peninsula goods, things we create in-house, but then we also kind of curate our favorite products from across the UP. And then it's also all the online content we do, whether it be April Fool's Day jokes,
right,
or interviews, different content, statistical write-ups, could be anything. With the overall goal of, highlighting the UP and putting it into good light. And then there's part of it of the brand is that we kind of acknowledge the stereotypes that the UP has, but we don't embellish them. We don't play them up.
No.
So we kind of we try to keep it classy and do things in a different way.
Sure. I'm thinking of like your magnet that you have with like London, Paris, New York, Marquette.
Yeah, right. Right. That does well.
You're keeping it classy.
And that's what we want is to do things classy, to try and do things mindfully, and to do it a little differently, and bring original ideas to the forefront. But it's all about community. Platter Day is all, and 906 Day, those are community-driven things. So we want to be involved here, make a difference. And then my favorite thing is I've been doing this personally for 10 years.
Sure.
It's always been online. I have customers that have been customers for 10 years that I've never met. And now they drive through Marquette and stop in the store, and I actually get to meet them for the first time. And I love meeting all the other customers and what brings you to Marquette? Do you have family here? Have you been here before? What are you seeing while you're in town? So I love having that dialogue. And then, they have questions for me. And, there was this couple in here from Brazil recently. And
wow.
They had all kinds of questions about the UP.
Yeah.
And it was really fun to kind of help them out and
point
them in the right direction.
I like that, you're putting a physical location on an idea that's been out in the interwebs for so long. I mean, it's just kind of cool. I mean, I told you the story about my buddy who sent me a Snapchat. He was in your shop. I didn't even know he was in town, and he's flipping through Wise for Youper, which you can still purchase. Everybody that's listening, you can purchase. I'm going to shamelessly plug my own book at UP Supply Co. But I mean, you guys you've got T-shirts, you've got magnets, you've got greeting cards, you've got art. Mm-hmm. I mean, you name it. It seems like you guys have it there.
Yeah, and those books, by the way, are all autographed.
Yeah, they all are autographed
by Scott himself.
Yeah,
but yeah, there's some shared office spaces and a little gallery wall, so it's kind of a hodgepodge and experiment. But I've always wanted a physical location, and it's really worked out well. It's a ton of fun, and really we're scratching the surface. And now we're trying to hustle with all the new things we want to bring.
Right.
There's no shortage of ideas. There's just shortage of time.
Right. Really. I mean, you were just talking to me before we started recording about your big project for the Copper Country Relief. Yeah. I mean, how many T-shirts have you sold for?
So Yeah, so we decided to do this Copper Country Relief shirt. It was 2 days after the flooding that the idea is like, hey, what if we did a shirt? We sat on it for maybe 24 hours, scrambled to put it together, and in a little over a week now, actually it'll be 2 weeks tomorrow.
2 weeks, yeah.
We have demand for 1,400 shirts.
Unbelievable.
So we've sold 1,300 of those ourselves.
Yeah.
Pre-order, so the first printing we had 900, and we're starting to get those out the door. But we sent up 100 shirts to Finlandia.
Awesome.
We're working with the Portage Health Foundation, for all our donations. So we're pushing a $30,000 donation at this point.
Unbelievable. Shout out to everybody up in the Copper Country. If you're listening to this, we love you guys. We're thinking about you. And I mean, you sent a shirt to all 50 states, right? I mean, not only have you traveled to all 50 states, you didn't collect a shirt from all 50, but you sent a shirt to all 50.
I love that. I love geography. I love the 50 states, and I love the idea that there are Yoopers everywhere. But it's such a good testament to, I kind of touched on it earlier, but we're in Marquette, we're 100 miles from Houghton, but it never feels that. And it's like so many people here have connections up there, they have a cabin up there, they grew up like, it's like the UP is vast in size, but its community is very tightly knit.
Absolutely.
It's just a default mentality, and it's actually one of my, there's a good story of this, is that during the winters, it's a default thing you see someone stuck in the snow. It's the mentality, you don't even question it. It's just like, okay, I've been there before. I know what that's like.
Yeah, you stop and you help.
You stop and you help. And then, so a number of years ago, I think it got printed up in the, I don't know if it was the state news at Michigan State, but some woman got stuck in the snow during a snowstorm in East Lansing, and she got stuck somewhere near the Breslin Center. So some guy rolled up to help her get out, help push her car out of the snow, and out comes Tom Izzo to push her car out of the snow.
Oh,
but man. Talk about but that's it. That's Tom's a Yooper. He gets it.
Absolutely.
It's and you just don't, you just do it. And that's what kind of pushes us along, is that we, I think the flooding happened, and, we live in a fortunate place where we don't see natural disasters really.
Right.
It's kind of shocking, because I don't think anybody would have expected that. But it kind of okay, it happened. Time to pick up our britches.
Yeah,
get to work.
They weren't waiting for FEMA to come in and assess whatever. Everybody just put their work boots on and went to it, and that was really cool to see.
I know where my skill set is as a marketer and a designer. So I was like, but that's a skill set that's handy that can still raise funds and partnerships and things. So I was like, there are so many different ways to help. And
absolutely.
So, yeah, I love seeing that.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
an
not only
awesome
are you helping, but you're also just kind of shining that light on all the cool stuff that's going on up here, stuff that matters and that has an impact, and that's important, and people need to know about it.
Yeah, yes. Full stop. Period.
Full stop. Period. Yeah. No. I mean, because in a way, what you're doing with UP Supply Company is what I'm trying to do with this podcast. Is the UP is full of cool people doing cool things that matter, and I don't think it gets enough spotlight as it should.
Yeah, I always come back to, I think the UP has a ton of authenticity. You don't have people who are, it's not like the city where it's a big rat race and people are trying to climb the ladder and get to the top. It's, we're really down to earth folks, and we help each other out. We enjoy the outdoors. We don't, big high expectations and need
No.
like all the modern amenities and the materialistic things, which, and you have to, it's, if you want those things, you're not going to be happy here.
Absolutely. Yeah, this isn't the place for you. But so to wrap this up, I have one final question for you.
Oh my.
One final question. Ketchup or gravy on your pasty?
Oh, what? Neither.
Neither? You're just going raw. You're just going
for If it's a good pasty, it shouldn't need a condiment.
Ooh.
That's
a statement and a half.
Yeah.
I like that. I guess I can agree with you to a certain respect, because there's definitely been pasties that I didn't need any sort of condiment on top. But I can also say I'm one of those weird people that would say both. Not at the same time, but
I was gonna say that's getting weird.
There's certain pasties that with gravy on it have been very tasty, and there's been others where I've just ran with the straight up ketchup. So
this is a well-known thing with me that my friends know, that I don't actually like condiments as a whole on things. Okay. But a friend walked in on me eating ketchup on a pasty and was like, "What is going on here?" And I had but what it was is the jalapeno ketchup.
Oh, okay.
And that, I think that really adds. I like the spicy ketchup.
So yeah, you're putting a little zing on it.
So it's I kind of had a change of heart recently.
Well, change is always good.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. But all right, well, I cannot thank you enough for this interview. This has been a lot of fun, and I think this is a great kind of first step for me with doing the podcast thing. Keep doing all this awesome stuff that you're doing, and again, just thank you. This has been great. Do you have any kind of final things that you want to mention, or?
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Scott. I think there's been a place for a UP podcast for a long time. I'm excited about it, but as I always say is, stay awesome out there and let's do all the fun things.
All right, that about does it for our first episode of Chat It Up. I want to send another thanks to Bugsy for taking the time to sit down and talk with me. I think my biggest takeaway from our interview is taking that leap, taking that first step with your ideas. So many of us have great ideas and we talk about them all the time, but so few of us actually take that step to making things into a reality. And I think Bugsy's a prime example of taking those ideas and seeing them all the way through to fruition. So I hope that you liked this podcast. If you did, please give me 5 stars. Leave a comment. That's the way that this grows and it gets seen, is through your ratings and your comments. So please rate, comment away, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. So once again, for the Chat It Up podcast, my name is Shooter, and keep your chin up and your eyes forward.